This is question 12 on the higher calculator paper. Now, reading through the question says, the frequency table gives information about the times it took office workers to get to the office one day. So here are the times, 0 to 10 minutes, 10 to 20 minutes. The frequencies, these are the number of office workers it took between these times to get to the office. Part A says, draw a frequency polygon for this information. Okay, so this is quite a popular type question, right? But you need to be particularly careful as you're doing it. The frequency polygon, you're going to plot these frequencies, but you're going to plot them against the middle of each of these groups. And what I mean by that is, what's the halfway point between 0 and 10? So the middle of that group is 5, the middle of the next group is 15, and so on. So I'm going to write them all in here: 25, 35, 45, and 55. And I'm going to plot a frequency of 4, and the time in minutes, I'm going to plot it against 5. So this is going to be tricky because of the scale. 5 is going to be halfway in that group. So work my way up from that to 4. Every single one of these squares on these tiny squares stands for 1. So 4 is over there. That's my first point. I've marked it clearly with a cross. The next one is 15 and 8. So 15 is the halfway point in that group, and 8 is up there. So a little dot, and here you go. The next frequency is 14, and the group midpoint of that group is 25. So there's 25. I'm going to go all the way up to 14. Then it's 16 and 35. So here's 35. I'll go all the way up to 16. And then frequency is 6. The midpoint of that group is 45. So 45 is there. And that goes all the way up to 6. And finally, 50 to 60, the midpoint of that group is 55. And that goes up to 2. I'm going to use my ruler to join these up. Straight lines. And that's why it's called a frequency polygon, because it's made up of straight edges. It's important that you take your time as you do this, and also use a ruler and a pencil, just in case if you make a mistake, you can rub it off and do it correctly. Okay, I've just drawn that last line a little bit too long. Okay, and that there is enough to get full marks for the frequency polygon part of the question, part A, and that's worth 2 marks. Not a lot, but pretty straightforward once you know how, and shouldn't take you too long to do that. Here's part B and C. Part B says write down the modal class. Because it said write down, right, that means that you don't need to do any workings for it. It should be something that you'll be able to just pick up. Now, I'm going to go back to the table at the top, right, because that's where I'm going to get the modal class from. The modal class is the one with the biggest frequency. And the biggest frequency, as you can see from here, is 16. So the modal class is going to be this, 30 to 40. That is going to be the modal class. And that's what I'm going to write down as my answer to part B. Okay, so in the answer space, all I need to do is to write down that group. Just in the same way that they've written it up at the top, I'm going to write down 30 less than t less than or equal to 40. And that is the modal class interval. It's the group that corresponds to the biggest frequency. Okay, going on to part C. One of the office workers is chosen at random. Work out the probability that this office worker took more than 40 minutes to get to work. So work out the probability that the office worker took more than 40 minutes to get to work. Okay, so this question is asking me to work out a probability. It's asking me to work out the probability that somebody took more than 40 minutes to get to work. Now, the first thing I need to do, because it's a probability, I need to work out how many people we were dealing with altogether. And in the question, they haven't told us how many office workers we've been dealing with, but I know that these are all of them. So I need to add them up. 4, add 8, add 14, add 16, add 6, add 2, and that gives me 50. That tells me there were 50 office workers altogether. And what I need to also find out is, for this particular probability, I need to work out how many, or the probability that a worker took more than 40 minutes. So these are the people who, this group here is 40 to 50, and this group here is 50 to 60. So the people who took more than 40 minutes are these two groups here. So there were 8 people who took more than 40 minutes to get to work. So going back to part C, the probability that somebody took more than 40 minutes, well, there were 8 people who took more than 40 minutes, and that was out of 50 people altogether. So in my answer space, I'm going to write 8 over 50. Notice this question didn't ask us to simplify this. Or you could simplify it to 4 over 25, but because the question hasn't asked us to do any simplification whatsoever, it's pointless. We're not going to get any marks for that, right? Just stating that there is enough to get full marks, the full 2 marks for that part. This is quite a good question to make sure you understand fully and you're able to answer completely.